about 20 minutes south of Aberdeen.
I was going to say it's impossible to be north of Aberdeen, isn't it? You're into the sea.
No, oh
It's
no, oh
directly
no.
into the sea if you're in Aberdeen, though. It's
No,
like it's on a shelf, isn't
keep
it?
going. You can keep going north. There's Fraserburgh and places like that. But Stonehaven is, yeah, we were in a motorhome. We returned
Living it up,
what,
living it up, mate.
probably a day and a half early, I think.
It's just
Yeah,
miserable. It's one of
which
those
was quite
holidays that you think it's a good idea, but when you're there, it's like, what the heck are we doing? We need a shower. We need facilities.
exactly.
Anyway, we're live, everybody. Welcome to Brainfood live on air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. And I'm super excited to be having this conversation with you today. The reason why is because it's been a topic that's been on my mind for a long while. AI candidates, AI enablement. We want to AI enable our businesses. What better way of doing that other than hiring people that are already AI literate? It kind of makes sense. Reminds me back in two decades ago, when you're trying to become a digital company. Best way to do that is kind of hire people that know what they're doing already, native digital people. So, question is, how are we actually assessing for AI literacy? Does anybody know how to do this? I don't think we do. So this is why we're going to have this conversation and try and hammer it out. So, folks, that is the topic of the show today. Hopefully, you're in the right place. So let me just do some of the standard sound checks as we usually do. Folks who are on Crowdcast listening to this, do let me know whether the audio visual is fine. Let me know in the comments down there. We should be broadcasting this live on LinkedIn. Bunch of LinkedIn's going out there. And Martin Redston's broadcasting on LinkedIn. Johanna Sundlo is also broadcasting this on LinkedIn as well. Rob, I hope you are as well. As ever, you is the most diligent individual. You're doing it as well, Adam. That's brilliant. So we've got blasting out. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, let me know with a comment whether the audio and visual is fine. Looks like it's all good. Restreaming on LinkedIn is fine. Thank you very much, Michael. All well and good. Fantastic. Let's get on with it. Let's thank our sponsors because without Brainfood Live sponsored, we can't do these conversations. Every week, a company steps up and says, we're going to keep this conversation on the roll. And today's sponsor is one of our favorites. It's none other than Bright Hire, one of the number one, maybe the number one AI note taking service out there, one of the best sort of intelligent interview intelligence companies around. And in fact, they were the business that prompted this conversation. I don't know whether you saw Ben Sessa's update on this, but he basically did a bit of research from his own proprietary platform. Remember that BrightHire essentially records and transcribes interviews and has done millions of records, sort of millions of bytes of data in terms of what is being asked at interview, and they just tracked how many times people were asking for AI literacy during the course of an interview. And in fact, what kind of roles particularly people are interested in, who is asking this, that, and the other, even dived into recruiters recruiting recruiters, whether we asked about AI. And it's a fascinating post. I'm going to share it in the chat here. Make sure you check this out and have a look see. Ben, by the way, is worth a follow on LinkedIn anyway, because he regularly posts content like this from his own platform. So it's a really good source of intelligence as to what goes on within interviews. Anyway, that's the set piece for this conversation. Thanks for Bright Hire also for the sponsorship and the inspiration. Okay, let's get on with the show. Adam Gordon, good to see you. We're just having a chit chat about the holiday, but Adam is in Wintry, Scotland. Apparently, it's like 15 degrees C, which is just a
Nice.
shocking state of affairs. Part of the reason why I don't regret leaving Scotland, beautiful country though it was. You just need to have better temperature, I'm afraid to say. All right, Adam, listen, let's dive into it. Newsletter, did you read it last week? And if so, what was interesting, mate?
I never failed to read it, and there was lots that was interesting. So again, it's hard to pick just a couple of the articles, but I'm going to start with Steve Levy's warning that AI, in particular agentic AI, could be weaponized across every stage of the talent acquisition life cycle. So he's written an article called, I think it was The Nefarious Side of AI for Talent Acquisition. And he's broken it down into the different ways in which it could really go wrong and cause havoc. So sourcing sabotage, for example, infecting the talent pipeline with fake resumes and poisoning keyword matching and uh, false Boolean searches and deepfake avatars and things like that. The next is interfering with interviews, so things like hijacking scheduling bots and spoofing virtual meetings, corrupting interview test results, things like that. For like strategic things, giving completely bogus talent heat maps, uh, issuing fake executive job offers to prompt resignations, um, injecting false compensation data to freeze budgets. I mean, there's no end of different things that could go very, very wrong with AI. So AI and talent acquisition approach with extreme caution.
Do you know what? I think Steve, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I get the feeling that Steve used to work in the Secret Service or something, because he's come out with a crazy post. I think it's one of the best posts I've read this year. It was so interesting, simply because it was a wild speculation, but reasoned speculation as to how artificial intelligence can be used in a negative way against the competition. So, for instance, if we're increasingly going down a track of relying on AI to source, assess, engage candidates, all this type of stuff, guess what? We don't even know how vulnerable that is to a competitor business potentially sabotaging our method. We have not hardened our recruitment process at all. It's almost like we just started a brand new thing. We think it's amazing, but we haven't stress tested it for bad actors. And I think Steve posted something which I do believe is going to go down in the histories of our industry. Is something we'll look back on this 12 months down the line and say, you know what, Steve literally predicted half of this stuff is going to happen, and it will be very well cited. Brilliant read. You can read it right now as a bit of sci-fi, a bit of fun, etc. But I don't think it's far away. Half the stuff that he's talking about is practically possible.
Mm,
And
yeah.
you just need to have you're competing, war for talent, etc. We just saw a week of Mark Zuckerberg blasting away at OpenAI, trying to swipe their teams and so on. We're literally battling for elite talent. You can imagine some of this sabotage actually going forward. We used to do it back in the day, early on. You deliberately do things that would harm the competition. I say we, metaphorical we, obviously I never got involved, but it was a technique that we would use to basically slow down the hiring of the competition. AI is going to accelerate this to the max. Crazy stuff, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about HR tech stacks and let's talk about Moneyball HR's HR tech stack failure report. So I'm not sure how quite it's worked all this out, but anyway, it says that two and a half trillion has been in dollars. This is has been invested in HR tech over the last 2 decades, and that hiring success has only improved by about 12% as a result. 89% of top performing hires came from referrals, internal mobility, and boomerangs, and not from the applicant tracking system or CV databases or job boards or whatever, other sources. It also, interestingly, the one that really shocked me was 76% of high performers have got don't have the credentials that are listed in their job description. So real flaw there in terms of like keyword based screening and like the whole assessment process. And so anyway, I thought it was really really fascinating and quite depressing at the same time. And I remember Paul Daly pointed out that in the same period, marketing tech has improved like success in marketing by like over 80%, and in HR it's like 12%. So I thought that was another very interesting one to read.
It's an interesting post, and there are some challenges with regards to where the sourcing was and so on. So definitely scrutinize with due skepticism, so to say. But it does pose quite an interesting question, meaning has recruitment actually improved with all of the technology that we're implementing? Are we actually getting better hires from it? The core people that kind of make a difference from your business. Have you done any audits on this? Or what's the scenario? You might find out actually, yeah, the key managers probably brought their best people in. That was completely outside of anything that recruitment tech related. Could have done that off the contact book from their phone book, from their phones. So what is it all for? Is the question that post raises. Good one. Okay, give us one more, mate.
Right. I mean, we've got our own blockbuster moment in talent acquisition now, don't we? With Monster and Career Builder, two
Mm,
pioneers of the job board world, in particular Monster. Career Builder never really took hold in the UK, but it did in other countries, and of course, it was massive in the US. Monster, however, had like absolute global dominance at one point. It was the number
mm,
one job board in half the world, I think, at one point. Anyway, they filed for their Chapter 11, which is the US equivalent of bankruptcy filings because of challenging and uncertain macroeconomic conditions, is what they described it as. What I would describe it as is they've really failed to innovate and keep up with the times and provide reasons for people to keep coming back, like LinkedIn has and other even job boards have managed to do. You got to be sticky, and they just haven't really been. There's all sorts of different reasons why they messed up. Indeed, of course, was a killer for Monster and Career Builder the
yep.
day that they signed the document to basically hand over all their inventory.
Mm,
Anyway, interesting asset sales strategy. So they have announced some companies that might be buying bits of it. So JobGet, for example, is mooted to be buying the job board operations. JobGet has bought Snagajob and several others recently. They're a Boston-based company, and although these are with stalking horse bids, which are like designed probably to see who else could be interested. In terms of the like assets, they're suggesting the assets are worth between 50 and $100 million. I mean, why the domain name monster.com isn't worth like $50 million on its own, I don't know. Um, but their liabilities at the same time on the other side of the balance sheet are between 100 and 500 million. And they've even listed the debtors. So there's some, yeah, pretty bad times. And the knock-on effect in terms of the supply chain for some of the companies, Talru and a whole bunch of them that are listed, who are owed millions. Oh, Text Kernel were owed like over $2 million, for example. So sad times and a real shame. And actually, I met Jeff Taylor, the founder of Monster, for the first time last week. What an inspiring guy he is, and yeah, sad times for him and his legacy, and for all the monsters and the career builders.
did he? I mean, I'm interested. Didn't realize you met him. What was his general vibe about it? I mean, did you talk about it at all? Or?
Yeah, we were more, yeah, sort of. I mean, we were more talking about his new business, Boom Band, but it's yeah. I mean, he's definitely sad and nostalgic about the whole thing.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Monster folks, people who are sort of long in the tooth, or at least you got into the era of recruitment in the early Web 1 era. Monster was at one point the most refreshing and innovative brand out there. It was like a breath of fresh air. I remember using it as a regular, and then of course it just dropped off. I don't think it really changed in about 15, 20 years in terms of what it was. Turned into the Yahoo.com of its era, and unfortunately declared bankruptcy. Food off the job board industry, guys, and also worth thinking about the need to keep up with the times. And the Indeed sort of relationship is super interesting because it seems that these days, the data is the most, it always has been the case that data is the most important thing. So getting a temporary boost in revenue, traffic, etc., at the extent of losing your data sovereignty, if we can say that, is something that's worth bearing in mind. Think about what we're doing with AI right now. We're feeding it all of it, our data, getting some value back off it. But in the end, are we also feeding the beast that's going to consume us in the future? Anyway, let's get cracking with this. Let's get our guests onto the show. Adam, just your thoughts on this. You're a company builder. You are a person that is you recruit into your business. Have
Yeah.
you thought about AI literacy in recruiting? And if so, like how would you go about looking for someone who's AI literate?
Yeah, I mean, look, the this was somebody posted about this on the Recruiting Brainfood Facebook group recently. What's the best way to assess if somebody's AI literate? And I said, well, if their CV entirely matches word for word the job description, I think they're I think they're good. I think they've done a great job. I think that they, of course, that doesn't mean that they've got the skills necessarily, but shows they're AI literate. Um, it's just vital. It's just vital. If somebody is not 3 times more productive than they were this time 2 years ago, then their standards haven't caught up with what's acceptable and what people are going to be looking for today.
Yeah, really interesting, man. Let's get our guests onto the show whilst the police sirens fly past my window.
I'm going to give
Um,
you. I'm going to give you
it,
an example of this, and I might have. I might have. I think I've used Stephen as an example a couple of times, but Stephen McGrath, who works for me, in his spare time, using a number of AI tools, pretty much free AI tools, he has built an ADHD productivity app in probably 2 months, and it's good to go. And there's people using it. Nobody's paying for it yet, but they will be soon.
Yeah, really interesting. Let's bring our guests on here. By the way, Shrini, I see you in the chat. I think I might have said to you, hey, listen, do you want to come on? But I'm not sure whether you're up for that. If you are, do let me know. I'd love to bring you on as well. Okay, let's say hello to Martin. Martin looking svelte. Good Lord, this guy knows how to get into this with the beach body. Let's put some credit to Martin Redson there. You're the only person I know that's made promise to themselves. I'm gonna get into shape, and you've actually done it. So credit to you, mate. So, Martin, great to see you. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself, who are you, what it is you do?
Yeah, cheers, Hung. So no jabs and no breakfast before breakfast, I think is the saying du jour. So thanks for having me on, Martin Redstone. I run two companies. First one, you know me, or HR, is an advisory on governance, risk, and compliance in the world of AI in recruitment and HR. The second one, which is more pertinent today, is a product called Genesis, which is all about understanding the AI readiness and fluency of your talent layer in your organization.
Perfect stuff, Martin. I've just shared the link, LinkedIn, Martin's LinkedIn, so make sure you follow him. Very good voice on all of those matters. We have Johannes Sundlo here as well. Johannes, great to see you. Did I read an update from you early today? I'm not sure if I did, but why don't you quickly introduce yourself, who are you, what it is you do, Johannes?
I don't really know what I'm doing yet, so that's the problem, or like who knows? No, but so I recently left my full-time job as a people director at the gaming company, and then since this week, I'm running my own sort of gig right now, and I will help organizations mainly with AI adoption in any shape or form. So yeah, I guess that's what I'm going to do, and God knows for how long. Like worst case scenario, I'll go back to being an HR VP in 6 months, but we'll see how that goes.
No worries. Good luck on the entrepreneurial journey, Johannes. It is, I think, well, I think everyone on the screen's done this. It's fascinating, very fruitful, very tough, hugely educational. But I think there is a huge market also for your particular domain expertise. How do you actually move people from thinking about it to actually doing it when it comes to
Yeah.
AI? That's a
Yeah.
huge sort of gap bridge. There's a huge gap to be bridged. But okay, let's talk about this. AI literacy. There's no business out there that's not looking to recruit candidates that are AI literate. I'm interested in, okay, how exactly are you doing this? Any thoughts on this? Firstly, let's have a look at profile, CV, online profile, gleaning stuff from that. Is that valuable as a way to identify someone who's AI literate? Can we identify people who are AI non-literate by that on the negative lens, or is it possible to do it? Or using sort of Adam's anti-example, are we at the point now where all digital communication we have to assume might be AI, but it doesn't tell you how sort of fundamentally skilled or domain expert this person is? What are your thoughts on CV review, CV profile, online review? Johannes, let's go to you on that first. Any thoughts?
No, but I also, just as Adam, as you pointed out as well, I assume that people have used an AI to generate their CVs. Like, why would you not? And I think for me personally, that is totally fine to do as long as it matches your actual skills and the things you actually know as well. Like, so I have no problem that you use ChatGPT to format your CV, but obviously you shouldn't have ChatGPT lie on your CV. Hence, you need to take responsibility for what's on your CV. But I assume that most people do use ChatGPT to format it, and I think to some extent that's quite good because then you can highlight what's actually valuable, important for the job, and so on. And you can also hopefully do it in a format that is easy to read. I mean, if you look back a couple of years, most CVs look like crap, and ChatGPT is now helping with the formatting. But I always assume that ChatGPT or another model is part of the CV. Whether it's good or not to assess for it, then that's another story. Like, how do you actually then assess the skills behind that? Well, it's tricky right now. That's all I have to say about that. More or less, that it is tricky, and I don't think that, as you pointed out as well, Hung, in the beginning, like I think there's no one who's really solved that like particular issue in the best possible feasible way and scalable way as well right now. But happy to be proven wrong in that case as well.
I
Yeah,
would challenge.
go on.
I was
Go
going to say,
ahead.
I would probably challenge Johannes's preconception that most people are using ChatGPT or AI in general to do their CVs. I suspect that most people under the age of 35 are.
Uh-huh.
Like, I don't know, 50% of people between the age of
Mm.
35 and 45 are, and 20% of people over 45 are. I think that it might well not be most people,
No,
but
oh,
most people
it's
probably
a good
would.
point.
But yeah.
It's a good point. And I said like the things or the people that I've been recruiting, it's on the younger cohort, so that's probably right. It's a good point.
Mm.
Yeah, we have sort of reasonable data from Arctic Shores is survey data, but they've done it consistently, just surveying particularly younger generation, early entry talent, and the numbers of people using ChatGPT specifically for that reason is actually really high. It's into the
Yeah,
70s, 80% and stuff like this. You can assume there's a very regular usage for that tier. The question though is like, if everyone's using it, like we can't really use the document itself to assess for AI literacy, can we? Because it's so commodified. It means that we can't tell how deeply literate this person is. All right, they're at basic usage, fantastic. At least there's the tick on that. But
yeah.
can we really go deeper? Martin, let's go to you on that. Can we look at someone's CV? Like, is there any signal on there that will tell you actually this person is more advanced than just a basic GBT user?
No, to put it
Fair
bluntly.
enough.
No, sorry to be blunt. Look, it's like we were saying earlier. Even my parents who are old enough to be some people's grandparents are using Chat GPT. And they're using it wrong. They won't listen to me about how to use it, but they're using it wrong. And so no, I think that the challenge, and I talked about this, 2.5 years ago when you had me on the show about ChatGPT when it first came out, is that you throw a conversational interface on something and the whole world, jumps on board. It doesn't mean that they're good. It means that they can talk to a chatbot. And true AI literacy for me isn't just how well you can prompt as well. And I think that's the biggest fallacy that we have in this conversation, is that everyone talks about prompting and looking at prompts and asking how people prompt and asking what tools they use. That's not AI literacy as far as I'm concerned.
Why not, Martin?
Well, look, if we go even to the EU AI Act, which gives us a great starting point, this is what we will talk about at the minute. It defines AI literacy as having the skills and knowledge to make informed decisions about AI systems, understanding their capabilities, interpreting their outputs responsibly. And so it doesn't even mention prompting ultimately. And so I feel that AI literacy, it's not just a technical skill. It's a business competency ultimately.
Really good, Martin. I love the fact you bring in that sort of the context, the wider sort of legislative and compliance context. It's boring, folks. We know that. However, if you're hiring people into your business, you're going to want to know, ideally, you need employees that are very fluent with what is okay and not okay to use in your jurisdiction. So perhaps that's one of the questions you need to be asking at interview. You got to query the person on what do they know about what's okay to use? Are you familiar with these acts? Regardless of what sort of jurisdiction you're in, there's some rules somewhere that tell you what is good, bad to use, what the risk areas might be. Your ability to kind of talk fluently on that, I think, will immediately collapse the numbers of people who might call themselves AI literate.
So
So it's very good. Go on, Adam.
I think we need to be quite specific about this then in that case, because based on Martin's definition, which sounds right to me, like almost nobody needs to be AI literate. They just don't need to be for most jobs. You don't, as a recruiter, you don't need to be AI literate. You definitely don't. You don't need to put systems together. You don't need to understand governance and what Bob's talking about in terms of like ethics. And you don't need to know any of that. You need to know how to do it, how to use it to be more productive and successful.
Yes, and so I agree with you to a point, Adam. But there's a yes and a no to that, because even if you're expecting somebody to use the tools like ChatGPT or Gemini or what have you, a good prompter still could be a dangerous prompter. So you need to understand things like garbage in, garbage out. You need to understand things like how to not put personal information in there, all those kind of things that come along with the wider literacy around AI. What's the right tool to use at the right time? How do I then assess what comes out of the end of ChatGPT? Do I just accept it as a replacement for Google? All those things. There's a lot more around the knowledge piece than just can I use the tool.
Yeah, really good. I think it's important we have the dialogue in this manner, guys, because it is actually the case. If we're talking about AI literacy, it's not just about your technical usage of it.
No.
It
No,
is about whether you're doing things that are compliant with what is law or not. I mean, for instance, would you hire someone who's like a great coder, but they potentially don't know the difference between what is high security, low security in terms of what they might be pushing? Not good. It kind of damages their capability as an employee. Maybe they're better off suited not being an employee and being, their solo player. So, yeah, absolutely, Nicola. Ethics of using it, maybe all of this type of stuff, very interesting as well. Okay, so we're getting somewhere, guys. Maybe we want to put in this concept of interviewing people on the legislative environment. That's all well and good. Interviews seem to be the predominant way in which we assess for literacy, though. So in other words, we can't tell too much on the CV, although I think maybe you can identify people who are non-good at AI. You could do a negative screen on it, and maybe you can move those away.
it's
But when you're in the interview, we've got to ask them questions. What questions are we thinking of asking? We talk about the legislation. Any other things that we need to ask at interview? Johannes?
no, but so I mean, how to assess if someone is using a like you look for the EM dashes and also the hyperbolic language, but and then you know if they're using AI or not. But it's getting better
And
and
then you're
better on
being
not doing
biased
that.
towards neurodiversity. That's the other issue.
Exactly. No, it's but so it's super tricky to do that on the CV. But so what I like, and I saw someone, I think it was Bob maybe who mentioned that in the chat as well, in regards to like assessing it. Like once again, like assume that people will do it, and I mean I think it's good that people do it as well. So my questions when I've interviewed for this is not so much around like, okay, are you using it or not, and back and forth. It's more like, okay, can you show me, like, can you show me your thought process when you're using it? So you used it for your CV. Okay, what's the thought process around that? How did you go about it? What, and CV is one example. You could take a concrete problem as well. And once again, like it's not so much about the problem, it's more about how did they approach the problem? Like how did they approach the problem with the use of ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or whatever they're using? And then walk me through like this is how I work with the model, and this is how I think. And obviously what you're looking for there, because that requires a lot of you as an employer or as a recruiter as well, that you have to have the basic understanding on like how to use the models right. But what you're looking for there is someone who takes that bit of critical sort of perspective on using the models, not just blindly saying, okay, I will dump something in and then we'll just take the output and then go with it. You need to have that dialogue between back and forth between the model and the person, and this is how I go about it. This is right. This is wrong. Like, so it's really more of a dance than like, hey, I dump something into the model and I take that what the model sends me back, and I'm hey, happy go lucky. But that's, I mean, it's one way, but once again, that requires that you have made your own sort of that you're grounded in your own work in regards to AI, that you know the EU AI Act, what's sort of deemed important in that sense, what's important for the organization, where do we stand in regards to the use of AI first and foremost. Like, this requires a lot of the organizations, and I would assume that most organizations, they're not there yet, and also a lot of people are not there yet. So it requires a lot of the interviewer as well. But that's how
Good point.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, a good point on the literacy of the interviewer also needs to be high.
Yeah.
Like it's very similar to me of let's say if you're a non-technical person trying to interview a technical individual, there's limited capability that you have to do that. You can probably establish things like motivation, communication skills, all of the intangible stuff. You can maybe even get down to, I know it's like sort of taboo to say it, but these days, but you get into the cultural fit argument. Is this person fit to team, fit to organization? You could probably ask that. But when it comes to assessing capability and literacy, you yourself have got to have a certain level.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, then I guess you need to deploy someone who does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I suggest
Adam, go ahead.
another one? So I put this in the chat, but I'm just going to say it because not everybody's, of course, on Crowdcast. Jason Lemkin, who was the founder of EchoSign and is the founder of SaaStr. It's a brilliant podcast about SaaS technologies. He said he only hires people who can do amazing things with AI for every job, and he does literally say to them, "Okay, show me your ChatGPT chats."
Yeah.
And he will actually say, "Show me." I mean, that's a little bit intrusive. He can get away with it because this guy's like a superstar who people want to work with. So I don't think most organizations could do that, but that's a very quick way of being able to assess. Hang on a second, they're fixing like loads of things, and they are 300% more productive than they were 2 years ago.
All right, listen, stop press on this. I think this is a really good example of how you might be able to assess someone's capability without the interview. Because I'm trying to think about scale here. If we go and interview
Yeah.
everyone, we have to do all of this. We can't scale it. But if you can say to someone, "Hey, listen, can you just do a quick Zoom call? I want to see basically your prompt screen. Can we see the history of how you prompt?" And then from there, we can see, okay, some level of fluency. Like, are they having a dialogical scenario with the AI? How are they creating the context before the prompt? Are they able to understand and challenge the AI output, for instance? Maybe that's a reasonable way to do it, folks. What do you think? Moving on just a little bit further, is it possible to grab this person's prompt history, stick it into your AI, and measure their literacy that way? Has anyone tried that? So yeah, maybe the
Oh.
stuff basically that the person has produced online that you can kind of use to assess a general level of literacy. Thoughts on this, Martin? Johannes, come in.
So it's the core reason why I built Genesis, and I mean, I started researching this over 12 months ago. Hundreds, probably coming up to 1,000 hours of research on it now. But ultimately, there needed to be a system that systemized and was scalable, and also on the knowledge that it is the blind leading the blind, like we mentioned earlier, where the vast majority of people, I was in graduate assessment centers watching how they did this. It was just shocking. So that was the reason why I built Genesis, was to be able to systemize and scale assessing illiteracy across the entire workforce. On the fact that you even mentioned it, we know that AI literacy for somebody who's coming into a marketing role is different than AI literacy coming into a developer role. So there is a solution out there. I'm not here to sell, but ultimately, and interviewing isn't the solution because it's still subjective. I know a poll that you did a couple of weeks ago, Hung, showed that I think 46% of people still relied on interviewing for this. But it's not the way to grade it. It's still subjective. It's still the blind leading the blind. It's not scalable at all. So that's my thoughts on that.
Oh.
Johannes?
But likewise, like there needs to be some kind of system, or like either if it's through Genesis or if something else. Like, but obviously, I think we need a scalable solution to this as well, to showcase that. If that is through doing some kind of assessment or showcasing your work or whatever it might be. Like one idea could be that you send a ChatGPT chat with your CV. This is how I work with ChatGPT. This is a problem that I solved. But obviously that is also not scalable. Then you need a human to vet that. And also, once again, you could run into the problem with the recruiter then needing to be proficient enough to deem if this is a good solution or not. So, I mean, yeah, there's an opportunity here for a solution. But I think it's super important that we start evaluating this in some shape or form.
Absolutely. By the way, we should also say that skills acquisition is another area we need to talk about. So, for instance, how hard is it to get to a level of competency? It may actually not be very difficult at all. In which case, actually, our assessment requirement may be lower than we currently kind of maybe suggesting in this conversation. Because if it is just a case of, look, actually, a training course or a couple of strong onboarding sessions on AI will get everyone up to a level where they can actually be AI enabled, maybe we're good to go. We don't necessarily need to assess for it at the talent acquisition stage, because we've got confidence in our ability to up level the individual. Or is there something more fundamental? Is it a mindset issue or a traits issue, similar to how sourcing was? Remember 10 years ago we were looking for technical sources. One of the ways we did that was, okay, let's show me how you source for this. I want to see your thinking. I want to see your Boolean strings. I want to do all of this, that, and the other. And there we're scrutinizing not only the technical capability, but also their thought process as we go through. And I think half the time we're looking for mindset as well. It's not just the things that we're seeing right there and then.
I think
okay.
Sorry, I was going to just say, Hung. I think it's slightly different though, because we're seeing in the press, reduction in forces due to AI. We're seeing in press, massive investments in AI. We're seeing in press, proof of concepts failing when it comes to AI. It's a strategic competence. It's not a job specific skill, and I think that's the big difference here. It's like the advent of Microsoft Office. Eventually it was just a strategic imperative because there was so much investment going into new software across the entire enterprise that it needed to be a skill that everybody had. It wasn't job specific.
Yeah, really interesting. And I think, we're right. I wanted to raise the onboarding issue simply because skills acquisition is an important point, and not to underplay the idea that we need to actually up level as many as we can. Even though I think we can accept that probably there's going to be a percentage of people that are going to be significantly better at this than others as a method of thinking as you go. Let's talk about grades of AI literacy. So far we've talked about AI literacy as if it's a black and white thing to say, okay, this person is literate, this person isn't. Now maybe at the bottom level there's going to be a bunch of people who can say, okay, definitely they're not there. But then there's a bunch of people that could be there, but how do we grade it? I want to just share something on screen right now, because I think this is a grading system. I believe it is from Zapier, and I really like how they did this. Because it's quite well thought through. And hang on, what's that happen here? Yeah, I'll allow that. And let's share entire screen. Am I doing that? Can you see this thing here, guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you see this thing?
Yes.
How about now?
Yep.
What do we think of this? So we've got basically, I believe this is Zapier's, and by the way, Zapier are a business that have gone down the route of, okay, we're AI first, so therefore every candidate, no matter what role, has to go in through this flow, and then be in a position to say, right, this is how we're going to grade the person. And you can see they've actually broken it down in roles, which I thought was super useful. Roles basically on the rows, and at the top there's 4 levels. And the levels are quite clear. Unacceptable. So in other words, if you're an unacceptable bucket, they're not going to hire you. It's not acceptable if that's your level of literacy. Next one is capable. So, okay, I assume you're past the bar there. And then we have adoptive. Adoptive, I don't know quite what that means. Presumably it's another word for advanced. And then finally we have transformative. So this is a person, I guess, whose AI literacy is such that they may come in and actually transform the workflow of your business. So, folks, I wanted to know what your thoughts are. And it's interesting enough, they've also put people and HR on this.
I love that.
why don't we dive into people in HR? So I think it's quite interesting. Uncapable. Okay, so this is someone who distrusts all AI hiring tools. So an AI skeptic, no, you're out. A person who screens each resume one by one. So have a manual screening process. I guess if you test them, how do you screen? You go one by one. Okay, you're out of the flow if you're going into recruiter for Zapier. And then finally, relies on manual scheduling. Can it follow? So listen, if you're not using auto scheduling tools, again, you're out. I think that's quite harsh, isn't it? How many sort of TA people miss out on the Zapier job? I think about 60% bounced out straight away, aren't they?
That's why I'm laughing. Like I know I've met a lot of people who will not meet the bar at Zapier.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
So it's really interesting. I like what Zapier do, and I like what they've done here. And there's been a lot of companies that have come out saying we're AI first, we're only hiring for AI literate, but they've really kind of put their mark on the ground with this one. One of the really interesting things, and when I look at scales like this, that came out of some of the research that I did around this towards the end of last year, was how to grade people. And one of the interesting things was that hiring managers would only bring people forward if they had like a 10 out of 10 on AI literacy. So one of the early versions of Genesis kind of scored people on a scale of 1 to 10. And the question was then pushed back, which was, do you know what level your own staff are in your team? To which said no, and we did assessments. They were nowhere close to 10 out of 10. So that is why we then went for the kind of almost like Ofsted style needs improvement, good enough and outstanding kind of a thing. So I tend to agree with this, and also we do a similar thing in Genesis around kind of different competencies for different roles as well. So I totally agree with this kind of matrix. I think that I mean, if anybody's an AI skeptic, they're not going to get any work with an AI first company. But I agree with some kind of floating scale. But I just think it's important that not everybody's aiming to only have transformative people in the organization.
Yeah, brilliant, Martin. And I think benching your current staff would be a useful thing to do, wouldn't it? Before you start like interviewing people for this. So maybe this tool itself could be a benching type of thing. Let's just read through a little bit what this looks like. Capable. So I guess this is above the bar. Drafts interview guides and summarizes panels with ChatGPT or a guest equivalent, saving 2-ish hours. So I like the fact they're putting like some quantification in terms of what they're looking to achieve, and then can explain privacy limits. So I guess that makes sense. I don't even know what that means, but presumably
Yes, personal information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, and then let's have a look at adoptive. Automates onboarding docs, run LLM resume screen with bias checks, yielding 3 times faster shortlist. I guess this is where we start flagging up. We start flagging this is difficult.
That's dangerous.
Ridiculous.
Difficult.
No,
that's dangerous. Not difficult. You can't screen CVs with LLMs.
No, absolutely not. This is who put this together? This is actually Zapier's hire.
This came out from the CEO of Zapier. Yeah, this is.
I mean, this is really bad. They can't be publishing stuff like this. It's
I did research on this. Brought out a few weeks ago. It's just dangerous. You can't do that.
I mean, it's 100% non-compliant with the EU AI Act as well.
So well, it just doesn't work. It's dangerous. As simple as that.
But it's funny though.
I mean, if the second line would have been and no, not to do this, then that would have been great from an adoptive perspective. But that's just blown this whole thing out the water for me.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting, though, isn't it, folks? Because we have tech companies. I think we can divide companies into two broad buckets. There's the first type that really are, I wouldn't say neglectful of the compliance side, but they're at least disinterested in it. And they perceive being slow to market to be a greater risk than compliance risks. And you can understand all the AI first companies are this way. And then you have probably the majority of companies that are a little bit more hesitant and say, actually, we've got a bigger reason to be concerned at this. And then typically it's about size and scale of organization. So very interesting on adoptive. But interesting sort of feedback from panel here as well. And then finally, we have transformative, revamps recruiting funnel with AI to shorten time to hire by 30%, trains HRBPs on safe AI and shapes company policy. So, okay. I don't know. It's kind of contradicting adoptive, isn't it?
Exactly. It's clear that they don't.
Sorry, Johannes.
No, I mean it's clear that they don't have that capability yet in the HR department that train HR BPs on safe AI and shapes company policy on ethical hiring in AI.
Yeah.
That's a competency they need in Zapier, so that's maybe
I,
why they put it out because they want to attract that competence.
yeah, and I think the wider issue is that people don't, because LLMs are magical and they look like and they tell you that they're doing a good job. People don't realize the inherent risks involved in using them sometimes in things like screening. So it's just a very naive viewpoint rather than a maliciously negligent viewpoint. But yeah, I agree with most of it. I think even the transformative piece, I think it's a bit wrong to put specific metrics on there, unless they're validated and they're smart and all those kind of things. But at the same time, I agree with the principles of it. I'm just slightly concerned at the naivety around pushing the LLM for screen, because in a lot of states in the US that would be illegal as well.
I mean,
No,
I want to know if Johannes uses AI to reduce the time to hire by 30%, and then Martin goes to join the team, he's got
exactly.
to get another 30%, and
Exactly.
then I go to join the team.
No,
I've got how over what period?
And 30% of the
no,
smaller amount is even worse. So
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. How
No,
can
that
you
was
keep
Well,
exactly
sharpening
my
your
point.
pencil here?
I
Is it
think we're
like
being a bit
it
harsher. We're being a bit harsh on Zapier here. I mean,
no
I think they've
no but
produced quite a useful
They
matrix.
started
yeah,
it.
yeah. So yeah, but I will say that as well. Like I think like the initiative in itself, like if you have that clarity and also like this is what
yeah,
we judge you on, I think that is good. Like that they have clarity internally. Like this is what we perceive to be good or bad. Like you could tweak and twist the actual things that they're measuring, but still like the clarity that it brings, I think that is refreshing. And also like I think it's a path or a step forward at least on the right path. But
yeah,
obviously they need to tweak that part a bit. But as a whole, I think it's great that they have that defined because then
yeah,
once again, like they know, and I hope that they know then how do we measure that? Like how do we make sure that we can evaluate the candidate against these criteria? Then once again, like how do you tweak it? Do you need to tweak it? But but
yeah.
the overarching structure is good.
I agree. I agree. I think
Yeah.
competency framework is really important. Like I said, it's not very similar, but do the same thing in Genesis with the competency framework across different role types. It's just a shame it was written by somebody who's been an AI expert since they used ChatGPT.
Mm.
Can
All
I
right,
just ask,
guys.
is
No,
this
Adam, I've got to just skip real quick because we noticed the time here,
Yeah.
folks. Listen, we are gonna have to come off air, obviously, but this is a very interesting conversation. We have to make sure that the conversation continues, even though we do come off air. There's a bunch of other things we need to talk about. Probably, this is going to be start of a repeat series for us this year. But anyway, the purpose of Brain Food Live is to ensure conversations continue, even though we come off air. The only way we can do that is to make sure everyone who's watching this is connected with everyone else. Go ahead and have that conversation with your colleagues, peers, and what have you. Talk about how we assess for job candidates of AI fluency. The way to do this, grab your LinkedIn URL, share it in the chat stream. If you're watching this on Crowdcast, if you're watching this on any of the LinkedIns, just do the same thing. Grab your LinkedIn URL, comment on it with that link in, and then just connect with everyone else who's done the same. Worst case scenario, you're going to walk away with half a dozen people that you can talk about this topic with, and you know they're going to be interested because they've tuned into this show. Okay, sorry, Adam, I interrupted you, so go ahead.
yeah. I wonder if this is a moment in time issue. So, like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I might be hiring for my accounts team and I might say, show me what you can do with a calculator, right? I'm not going to do that today, of course, right? So I wonder if it's show me what you can do with AI is not really like it's important to search for high performing people today with this in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time. It's just part of how we operate. It's like, show me how well you can communicate and achieve influence. Like, well, you're never going to be a leader if you can't do that anyway. So that's why I'm just wondering if this is a moment in time thing. And it's fine if it is. Well, it is.
It's it's no different from digitization, though. I think
Yeah,
you're right. I mean, these days, no one's going to search for someone's ability to use Google or whatever, even though we probably should, to be fair.
Yeah,
Because there's an
maybe.
assumption that people are sort of at that degree of fluency. But at this point where it's very emergent, I think if you're trying to accelerate your business to an AI-enabled business, one of the best ways to do that is got to be in the recruiting side and recruit
yeah,
skillfully for it. Okay, there's another screenshot which I've now lost, which I wanted to share on screen. It was a brilliant screenshot. It was a person that actually had a bunch of interview questions on how to query someone's level. And yeah, I just wanted, in absence of that screenshot, whether anybody here has any questions that you would ask. If you're building a team, you want AI literacy, you want someone who's transformative on AI, for instance, high level person, what questions would you ask? I mean, any thoughts this way? Let's go. I mean, Johannes, any thoughts for yourself here?
No, but so what I've done in the past is once again like going back to, and then I've been hiring HRBPs, for example, going back to like how do you use it, not and what do you use it for, and also then showcasing real examples, as I mentioned before. That is what I've done in the past. Right or wrong, we can discuss that as well. But question is like, can you give me an example, like a concrete example where you, for example, in a union negotiation, took or used ChatGPT to your advantage, or Gemini, or whatever it might be, and how did you go about it, basically. So tie it into real like work scenarios, but also then saying, and also open showcasing that, hey, how did AI sort of help you here as well. And if people don't have any sort of examples, it doesn't need to be a union negotiation, it can basically be whatever, but like it needs to be tied to work, like how did AI help you, what did you learn, how did you take what AI told you, and how did you use that in your work, basically. So that is what I've asked in the past.
Yeah. Very
yeah,
good. Eli, thanks for your message on chat. That's another topic of conversation. We'll definitely be talking about sort of enterprise sort of level rollout. How do we onboard this? In fact, there's a Brainfood Live happening on that topic later this month, I believe. We're talking about recruitment ops and how do we actually increase the enablement and usage of artificial intelligence exactly via that top-down route. Here we're talking about, you know, how do we do it from a recruitment sort of approach. Okay, Martin, leaving aside sort of technical usage or product usage, interview
yeah.
question that you would ask that you get the person, you get a sense as to how fluent they are with AI.
Yeah, I think there's. I had a thought. I had to think about this beforehand to say my words properly. So I came up with a few. One around ethics and risk. Describe a time you received an output from an AI tool that seemed biased, inaccurate, or ethically questionable. What was your thought process, and what did you do? On application and process, walk me through how you would use an AI assistant to solve a specific role relevant problem that you can give them. What would be the key steps in your initial prompt? How would you refine it? Same kind of approach that Johannes has talked about. On the governance side of things, imagine our company rolled out a new AI tool. What are the first three questions you'd ask about the company's policy on using it?
Great stuff. That little snippet's fantastic.
Yep.
Immediately, I can see how that would be super important. Adam, you're dying to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question would be you're looking for hiring data for the general environment in Upper Volta. Are you going to use ChatGPT, Perplexity, or LinkedIn's post assistant?
Yep. So choice of tooling is what you're saying. Choice
Yeah.
of tooling, maybe. Yeah. To be honest, as well, like how fluent are you on the landscape? It may not be irrelevant because we're a little bit locked into the ChatGPT world. That's not the
Well,
only product out there. Of course, it isn't. And your ability to think about sort of what is happening in the landscape could be super important as well. Go on, Martin. You gonna
it's
say
interesting.
something?
Oh no, I was going to say you made a really good point there about being locked in, because when I'm running kind of client workshops, one of the first questions I ask them is, what do you think the best AI assistant is? And the vast majority of the time, it's just the one that they prefer. When you look at the leaderboards, it's usually flitting around Gemini at the minute.
Yeah.
But at the same time, most people are just very biased towards the one they prefer.
Dependency, mate.
Yeah. So the question is a good one in terms of tooling, but you need to ask the why and based on what knowledge and information.
So probably the biggest prompt going into Copilot in recruiting teams in enterprise companies around the world is, Copilot, why can't you give me any information that helps me do my job?
Why
It's
aren't you like
probably true.
That's what they're saying,
So
isn't it?
on this topic, like I spoke to a big or a large organization that had measured, like they are a Copilot customer. They measured, but then no one was using Copilot, and they measured like outgoing traffic in their Wi-Fi, and ChatGPT was the clear winner of outgoing traffic in the Wi-Fi, but it was totally forbidden to do so. So yeah, people just turn to ChatGPT instead. But like you
Yeah.
should use the model that you feel comfortable with as well, and that's once again that requires a lot from the organization. Like, are you providing people with the right tools or not?
In many respects, the dominance of ChatGPT is coming from first mover advantage. I think they
Yeah,
just had just a spectacular sort of a
Yeah.
launch,
Absolutely.
historical launch, and it's very difficult to pivot off it. I mean, you have to be like super invested. Maybe like perhaps yourself and Martin would be examples of people that have the time to investigate the landscape. But people who are kind of locked into a maxed out job or whatever, it's like, okay, I've got to just get a quick result. You're not going to start diving in and doing comparisons. Very similar to search engines today. I mean, is Google the best search engine? Probably, maybe not. Why don't people use Brave? Just because or Firefox, whatever it is, you don't have the time to investigate. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see sort of whether the cost or values that are associated with open AI might change people's decision making.
If you don't have the time to investigate, you've got a short lifespan in an employed world. You
yep.
got to have curiosity and you got to have a growth mindset. And if you don't have these things, then that's your excuse for not making the time.
Yeah.
All right, I
Agreed.
think that's really harsh because you can say that as an entrepreneur, but the entrepreneur, the leader of the business or the
But
function, has got to create that bandwidth. You can't. An employee might be getting crushed in terms of why are you investigating the internet? Go and like find some more candidates. It's
well,
like
Yeah,
very
but
hard to create the bandwidth.
that's like saying I'm too busy to explore applicant tracking
exactly.
systems because I'm putting all my candidates on Excel.
No,
No,
but it's
that's
yeah,
exaggerated. Go ahead, Johannes.
but yeah, but
Hang
that's
on
the
while I go
point.
to my filing cabinet.
No, but the problem, right, like to your point, Adam, like I agree with it. I understand the reality of an organization. Like you don't have limited time, or you have limited time, and you can't be out and about. But you need to have like if you're large enough organization, then you need to buy that, or you need to employ someone that does that because like the world is moving so fast, and you need to be staying up front. How else would you like be competitive long term? It's that easy.
It's
Yeah.
growth mindset is not going to keep you in the job, mate. I mean, if you're like literally needing to pay the bills and your boss has told you to do X, Y, and Z, you're going to do it. So I think
But,
that it's all right to say be
oh,
growth mindset, but the boss has got to create the bandwidth for the team.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's a
absolutely.
leadership responsibility.
but
Yeah.
going back to the subject in hand, if you do want a true AI literate workforce, then it doesn't happen by magic. You do need to make sure there's upskilling, and you do need to know where the upskilling is required, whether that's in teams, whether that's in competencies, etc., etc. So it's really really important to assess what goes on in the organization and know where the gaps are. So joking aside, in terms of giving people too much work to do so they can't do things like this, if you do want true AI literacy in your organization, you need to enable it. It doesn't just happen by
Mm.
magic.
The final thing I want to say on this, by the way, like the ultimate test to test someone's AI literacy is synchronized stuff, isn't it? So we get them in the room, let's sit down together and let's like do a project or just do a quick sketch of what we would do if, and if we're side by side in a room and just blasting through it would probably get a quick sense as to what level of literacy that they do have. It's not a scalable way of doing it, but I'm thinking about it now. It may well be that assessment of AI literacy needs to go further down the pipeline, and it's going to be expensive, but that may not be a bad thing for recruiters in the sense it's extra work that recruiters need to do. It may actually be one of the things that is non-scalable, that in fact then creates increased demand for recruiters to actually be there in person doing that assessment. Who knows? Okay. I think we're going to come to time, folks. The first time ever Brainfood Live comes finishes on time. So we can continue with this conversation, of course. We probably do need a round two because I'm interested to know, again, what kind of assessments we need to do on the literacy side. I love the breakdown as well, Zappy. I wonder whether that is actually a bunch of mini-series we could do, like how do you test for literacy and engineering? How do you test for HR? How do you test in different sort of job families? That could be interesting. So we'll investigate that. But in the meantime, I got to say goodbye to our wonderful panel. Johannes Sunlo, great to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on the show.
Likewise.
Martin Redstone, always great to see
much.
you. Fantastic to see you. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Take it easy. And that's it. Oh, big news next week, folks. Obviously, we are at RecFest. Huge event happening next week on Thursday. If you are in recruitment and you're in the UK or even in the close surrounds and you're interested in turning up to this event, come and attend. I think the tickets are super accessible. I don't know what the number is, but it's really low, 200-300 quid or something like that, all day. 3,000-4,000 people in there, hundreds of speakers, loads of companies, great networking opportunity. And also, it is free to attend if you're out of work. So if you're a recruiter that's out of work currently, and you want to network, build profile, and do all of those things, which of course the answer should be yes, it's a free ticket, mate. I'll share the link to everyone here so that you know where it is, but obviously I think it's very good for you if you're there. All right, next week we're going to do a retro on RecFest and the state of recruiting, also midweek special as well. We're going to be talking about the state of we're going to talk about Endorsed, a really cool company that apparently is going to be replacing recruiters with automated agents. Why not? Let's have a look at that. That's happening on Wednesday, I believe. So anyway, follow the channel if you're interested in this. Follow my LinkedIn if you're interested in watching it there. And we'll see you next week. Cool. Thought that was all right.
Thanks. Yes, that was really great. We definitely need a round two.
We need to. Yeah,
I've got to go and do an employer-related securities return for HMRC right now.
Right. Okay. The taxman calls. Adam, I'll see you later, mate. Hope you're well.
Thank you.
Catch you.
See you soon. Bye.